I sat in the passenger seat of my son's car, staring out the window at the familiar streets of the city I had helped build. The buildings blurred past, their glass facades reflecting the harsh afternoon sun. I had spent 40 years of my life in this city, working 60-hour weeks, sacrificing my health and my youth to build a company that had become a cornerstone of the local economy. I had started with nothing, a single desk in a cramped office with no windows, and I had built an empire. I had given my son everything, the best education, the best opportunities, the best start in life that money could buy. And now, at 72 years old, I was worthless. That was the word my son, Derek, had used just 3 hours ago. Worthless. He had said it with such contempt, such absolute certainty, that the word had felt like a physical blow to my chest. I had been sitting in my living room, the same living room where I had watched him take his first steps, where I had helped him with his homework, where I had celebrated his graduation. He had come to visit me, a rare occurrence since my retirement 3 years ago. And within minutes of walking through the door, he had launched into a tirade about how I was a burden, how I had nothing to contribute anymore, how I was just a drain on the family's resources. "You don't do anything, Dad," he had said, his voice dripping with frustration. "You just sit around all day, collecting your pension, waiting to die. You're worthless. You've been worthless since the day you retired." I had stared at him, too stunned to respond. This was my son, the boy I had carried on my shoulders, the young man I had sent to college, the adult I had helped establish his career. I had given him everything, and he had reduced my entire life to a single, cruel word. "I'm sorry you feel that way, Derek," I had said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I had done my best for you." He had scoffed, rolling his eyes with exaggerated contempt. "Your best wasn't good enough, Dad. You wasted your whole life on that company, and for what? You're sitting in this rundown house with nothing to show for it. You don't have any money left. You don't have any connections anymore. You're just a liability." I had watched him walk out the door, his footsteps echoing on the hardwood floor, and I had felt something inside me break. I had given my entire life to my work, not for myself, but for him. I had built a legacy so that he would never have to struggle the way I had, and he had thrown it all back in my face. But now, 3 hours later, I was sitting in his car, and he was driving me somewhere. He had called me an hour after our argument, his voice suddenly friendly and conciliatory. "Dad, I'm sorry about earlier. I was out of line. Let me make it up to you. I want to take you to meet someone. Just give me a chance." I had agreed, partly because I was too tired to argue, and partly because I was curious. What could he possibly want to show me? We pulled into the parking lot of a sleek, modern office building, the kind of building that screamed wealth and power. Derek parked the car and turned to me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We're here, Dad. This is my new company. I've been working here for the past 6 months. I want you to meet my boss." I looked at the building, a sense of unease settling in my stomach. Something didn't feel right. Derek had never been proud of his work before. He had always complained about his jobs, always blamed his bosses for his failures. Why was he suddenly so eager to show me his office? We walked through the glass doors and into a lobby that was all marble and chrome. A receptionist smiled at Derek and waved us through. We took the elevator to the top floor, and as the doors slid open, I saw the executive suite. The office was sprawling, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city. And standing in the center of the room, waiting for us, was a man I had not seen in 15 years. "Arthur," the man said, his voice warm and familiar. "It's been a long time." I stared at him, my mind racing. The man was Henry Morrison, my former business partner. We had built our company together, side by side, for 20 years. And then, 15 years ago, we had sold it to a larger corporation for a substantial sum. Henry had retired to the countryside, and I had taken a position as a consultant. We had lost touch over the years, but I had never forgotten him. He was the closest friend I had ever had. "Henry," I said, my voice trembling. "What are you doing here?" Henry smiled, walking toward me with his hand outstretched. "I'm the CEO of this company, Arthur. I started it 10 years ago with the money from our sale. It's grown into something remarkable. But that's not why I asked you here. I shook his hand, still confused. You asked me here? I thought Derek brought me here. Henry glanced at Derek, his expression hardening slightly. Derek is my employee, Arthur. He works in the mailroom. He's been here for 6 months, and to be honest, his performance has been less than satisfactory. But that's not what we're here to discuss. I turned to look at my son. His face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. He had brought me here to impress me, to show me that he was successful. But he had not counted on Henry knowing who I was. He had not counted on the truth coming out. Henry, I said slowly, what exactly is going on? Henry gestured for me to sit down in a leather chair facing his desk. He took his seat across from me, his expression serious. Arthur, I've been following your career since we parted ways. I know you retired 3 years ago. I know you've been struggling with depression and loneliness, and I know your son has been treating you poorly. I felt a lump form in my throat. How did he know all of this? I have sources, Henry continued, as if reading my mind. And I've been waiting for the right moment to reach out. I need you, Arthur. I'm building something new, a project that requires the kind of expertise you have, the kind of expertise no one else in this industry has. I want you to come back to work, not as a consultant, but as a partner. Equal shares, full authority. I stared at him, stunned. Henry, I'm 72 years old. I've been out of the game for 3 years. I don't know if I can still do it. Henry leaned forward, his eyes intense. Arthur, you're the smartest person I've ever worked with. You built our company from nothing. You knew every supplier, every client, every detail of the industry. That kind of knowledge doesn't go away. It's still there, and I need it. The project I'm building is massive, and I can't do it without you. Before I could respond, Derek stepped forward, his voice desperate. Mr. Morrison, I don't understand. My father is retired. He's not capable of working anymore. He's old and forgetful. He's not the man he used to be. Henry turned to look at Derek, his expression cold. Derek, I've known your father for over 30 years. I've seen him negotiate deals worth millions. I've watched him outmaneuver competitors twice his age. He's sharper than you will ever be, and I would appreciate it if you didn't insult him in my presence. Derek's face went red, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. He had brought me here to show off, to prove he was successful. Instead, he had just been humiliated in front of his own boss, who had just offered me a partnership. Before I tell you what happened next and how I used this opportunity to teach my son a lesson he would never forget, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit the like button and subscribe to Vindication if you have ever been underestimated by someone who should have believed in you. To understand how we ended up in that executive office, with my former partner offering me a second chance and my son standing in stunned silence, you have to go back 3 years. The day I retired was supposed to be a celebration. After 40 years in the industry, I was finally ready to rest. I had sold my shares in the company, invested wisely, and set aside a comfortable pension. I had a beautiful house, a loving family, and a lifetime of memories. I thought I had everything I could ever want. But retirement was not what I had expected. The days stretched out endlessly, empty and meaningless. The phone stopped ringing. The emails stopped coming. I went from being a man with a purpose to a man with nothing but time. And time, I quickly learned, was a cruel companion. I started to notice the small slights from my children. Derek would take my calls, but always had an excuse to cut them short. My daughter, Megan, would visit but spend most of her time on her phone. They treated me like a fragile old man, someone who needed to be managed rather than loved. They stopped asking for my advice. They stopped valuing my opinion. I had become invisible. The worst part was Derek. He had always been ambitious, but after I retired, his ambition turned into resentment. He would make snide comments about my age, my memory, my relevance. He would talk about how successful his friends' parents were, how they had left behind meaningful legacies, how they had continued to contribute to society. And then he would look at me with barely concealed contempt. You had your chance, Dad, he would say. You built your empire. Now it's my turn. But I'm going to do it better than you ever did. I'm going to make something of myself, something you never could. I would nod and smile, swallowing the pain. I had given him everything, and he had turned it into a weapon against me. I had thought he would be proud of me. Instead, he was ashamed. And then came the day he called me worthless. I had been sitting in my living room, reading a book, when he walked in without knocking. He had the same angry expression he always wore when he was about to lecture me. "Dad, we need to talk," he said, his voice tight. "I've been thinking about your situation, and I've come to a conclusion. You're a burden on this family. You don't do anything. You don't contribute. You just sit around waiting for us to take care of you. It's not fair to us, and it's not fair to you." I had set down my book, staring at him in disbelief. "Derek, I'm not a burden. I have my own money. I have my own house. I don't ask you for anything." He had laughed, a bitter, cruel sound. "You don't have to ask. It's the principle of the thing. You're taking up space that could be used by someone who actually matters, someone who's going somewhere. You're just a has-been, Dad. You're worthless." The word had hung in the air between us, heavy and poisonous. I had wanted to argue, to defend myself, to remind him of everything I had done for him. But the words had died in my throat. I had looked into his eyes, and I had seen nothing but contempt. He didn't see his father. He saw an obstacle. "Get out," I had said quietly. "Get out of my house, Derek. And don't come back until you can speak to me with respect." He had stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I had sat in the silence, feeling the weight of his words crushing me. My own son thought I was worthless, and I had no idea how to prove him wrong. 3 weeks passed without a word from Derek. I spent the time wallowing in my own misery, replaying our argument over and over in my mind. I had convinced myself that he was right. I had retired, and I had become irrelevant. I had nothing to offer the world anymore. I was just a tired old man waiting for the end. And then, out of nowhere, Derek had called. His voice was friendly, apologetic. "Dad, I'm sorry about what I said. I was out of line. I want to make it up to you. I want to take you somewhere, introduce you to someone. Just give me a chance." I had hesitated, suspicious of his sudden change of heart, but I was also desperate. I had been so lonely, so desperate for any sign that my son still cared about me. I agreed to meet him. And now, sitting in Henry's office, I understood the truth. Derek hadn't brought me here to apologize. He had brought me here to show off. He had wanted to prove that he was successful, that he was better than me, but his plan had backfired spectacularly. Instead of impressing me, he had exposed himself. Henry watched Derek squirm, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Derek, I think you should go back to your desk. I need to speak with your father privately." Derek opened his mouth to protest, but Henry raised a hand, cutting him off. "That's an order, Derek." Derek shuffled out of the office, his shoulders slumped, his face pale. As the door closed behind him, Henry turned to me, his expression softening. "Arthur, I know that was difficult, but I needed you to see the kind of person your son has become. He's been spreading rumors about you, telling people you're senile and incompetent. He's been trying to use your name to get ahead, while simultaneously trashing your reputation." I felt a cold anger settle in my chest. "He's been spreading rumors about me?" Henry nodded. "He told people you had lost your mind, that you were incapable of making decisions. He tried to use that to gain sympathy and promotion. But I knew the truth. I've known it from the start. That's why I called you here." "What do you mean?" I asked. Henry leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Arthur, I've known you for 30 years. I know what you're capable of, and I know what your son is doing is wrong. So I'm offering you a choice. You can walk out of here and continue your retirement, and I'll understand. Or you can take my offer and come back to work. And if you take the offer, I can guarantee you one thing." "What's that?" I asked. Henry smiled, a cold, predatory smile. "Your son will be working for you, and he'll have to answer to you every single day." The thought sent a thrill through me. Derek had called me worthless. He had looked down on me, dismissed me, and tried to destroy my reputation. And now I had the chance to become his boss. The opportunity was too good to pass up. "Tell me about the project," I said, settling back into my chair. Henry's smile widened. "I knew you'd say yes." The project was ambitious. Henry had been building a new logistics network, one that would revolutionize the industry. But he had hit a wall. The suppliers he was working with were unreliable, the logistics were inefficient, and the costs were spiraling out of control. He needed someone with deep industry knowledge, someone who could negotiate the complex deals and rebuild the supply chain from the ground up. He needed someone like me. We worked together for weeks, building a plan. I called in old favors, reconnected with former colleagues, and used every connection I had built over my long career. Within a month, we had a solid foundation. Within 3 months, the project was on track. And within 6 months, it was ready to launch. The launch event was a major affair, held at a luxurious hotel ballroom. Executives, investors, and industry leaders packed the room, all of them eager to see what Henry had built. And I was standing at the center of it all, looking out at the crowd with a sense of pride I hadn't felt in years. Henry took the stage and introduced the project, outlining the vision, the strategy, and the goals. And then he introduced me. "I want to thank Arthur Caldwell," he said, gesturing toward me. "Without his expertise, his connections, and his decades of experience, this project would not exist. He is the architect of this success, and I am honored to call him my partner." The crowd applauded, and I felt the warmth of their respect wash over me. I had been called worthless by my own son, and now I was standing in front of hundreds of people, being celebrated as a vital part of a groundbreaking project. And then I saw him. Derek was standing in the back of the room, his face pale, his eyes wide with shock. He had not known about my involvement. He had not known that I was Henry's partner. He had thought I was just a retired old man, a burden, a liability. And now he was watching me be honored by his boss. I walked over to him after the event, my heart pounding. He opened his mouth to speak, but I held up a hand, cutting him off. "Derek," I said calmly, "I want you to listen to me carefully. You called me worthless. You said I had nothing to contribute. You said I was just a burden. Well, I want you to look around this room and see what I've built in the past 6 months. I want you to see the project I helped create. I want you to see the respect I've earned from people who matter." Derek swallowed hard, his face pale. "Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't think you were capable of. You didn't think I was capable of anything." I cut him off. "And that's exactly the problem. You looked at me and saw a liability. You saw someone who had outlived his usefulness. But you were wrong. I'm still here. I'm still capable. And I'm still your father." I paused, letting the words sink in. "You work for Henry, and Henry is my partner. That means, in a way, you work for me. I don't want you to be afraid of me. I don't want you to grovel, but I do want you to learn. I want you to understand what it means to be part of a team, what it means to respect the people who came before you. And I want you to remember this moment, because this is the moment you realize that your father was never worthless. You just didn't want to see it." Derek didn't respond. He just stood there, staring at the floor, his shoulders slumped. I turned and walked away, leaving him alone with his thoughts. The months that followed were a transformation. Derek's attitude shifted slowly, almost imperceptibly. He stopped making snide comments. He stopped dismissing my advice. He started to actually listen, to engage, to ask questions. It wasn't a complete change, not overnight, but it was a start. I continued working with Henry, building the project into a thriving enterprise. The company grew rapidly, and I found myself enjoying the work more than I ever had before. I was no longer just a retired old man. I was a vital contributor, a respected partner, a valued member of the team. And Derek started to respect me too. It happened gradually, over time. He would come to me for advice, asking about industry trends, about negotiation strategies, about leadership. I would answer him honestly, never holding a grudge, never reminding him of the cruel words he had spoken. One evening, about a year after the launch event, Derek came to my house. He knocked on the door, something he had never done before, and when I opened it, he was holding a bottle of whiskey. "Can we talk, Dad?" he asked, his voice hesitant. "I need to tell you something." I invited him in, and we sat down in the living room. He poured 2 glasses and handed one to me. "Dad, I want to apologize," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I was wrong about you. Everything I said was wrong. You weren't worthless. You were never worthless. I was just too arrogant to see it. I took a sip of the whiskey, letting the warmth spread through my chest. I know, Derek. I know you were wrong. But I also know why you said what you did. You were scared. You were trying to build your own life, and you felt like I was standing in your way. You didn't know how to separate my success from your own. And that's okay. It's understandable. Derek shook his head, tears forming in his eyes. No, Dad, it's not okay. I humiliated you. I hurt you. I said things I can never take back. And you still forgave me. You still gave me a second chance. You still treated me with respect, even when I didn't deserve it. I reached over and placed a hand on his shoulder. Derek, that's what family does. We make mistakes. We hurt each other. But we also forgive each other. We give each other second chances. Because at the end of the day, we're all we have. And I will always love you, no matter what you say or do. Derek broke down then, crying openly. I held him, feeling the weight of his regret and his pain. It was a long, healing moment, one that had been years in the making. And when it was over, we sat in silence, sipping our whiskey, and just being together. A year later, Derek was promoted to a management position. Henry had noticed his improvement, his work ethic, his willingness to learn. And when the promotion was announced, Derek came to me first. Dad, I wanted to tell you before anyone else. I got the promotion. I'm going to be leading a team of my own. I smiled, feeling a surge of pride. That's wonderful, Derek. I always knew you could do it. He shook his head. No, Dad, I didn't do it. You did. You showed me what it meant to be a leader. You taught me how to respect people, how to listen, how to learn. Without you, I would still be in that mailroom, bitter and resentful. You changed my life. I pulled him into a hug, feeling the tears prick at my eyes. You did this, Derek, not me. You made the choice to change. You made the choice to grow. And I am so proud of the man you've become. Derek stepped back, wiping his eyes. Thank you, Dad, for everything, for never giving up on me. I looked at my son, the boy I had raised, the man he had become, and felt a deep sense of peace. The road had been long and difficult. There had been pain, anger, and betrayal. But in the end, love had triumphed. We had found our way back to each other. And that was the greatest legacy of all. I used to ride upon your shoulders, thinking you could touch the sky. Every road felt less uncertain when I saw the world through your eyes. You were stronger than the mountains, taller than the northern pines. And when the winter winds were coming, you would stand between them and I. Time kept moving like the river. You slipped slowly off the sea. But no matter where life took me, you were always part of me. I am my Father's son. Every step I take, and every time I choose to stand when it is easier to break, I carry your courage in my heart, your fire inside my soul. And though the years keep moving on, your love still leads me home. You taught me strength is not in power, but in kindness when it is hard. You taught me how to keep on going when the road grows cold and dark. Every lesson, every story, every laugh around the flame lies within me like an echo, calling softly through my name. And when I face my greatest battles, when I feel I cannot go on, I can hear your voice beside me saying, "Child, you are stronger than you know. I am my Father's son." In every step I take, and every time I choose to stand when it is easier to break, I carry your courage in my heart, your fire inside my soul. Although the years keep moving on, your love still leads me home. One day the snow will cover footprints. One day the fire will burn low. But the things a father gives his son are the things that never go. Not the gold or not the stories, not the battles that he won, but the quiet way he loved him and the man he becomes. I am my Father's son, and I always will remain. Through every triumph, every loss, through every joy and every pain, the world may change around me. The stars may fade above, but I will always carry with me my Father's endless love. And when they ask me who I am, I will smile and answer softly, I am my Father's son. I am my Father's son. Thank you for listening to this story on Vindication. If you enjoyed it, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. I read every single one, and I want to know where you are watching from today. Drop your country in the comments and tell me, have you ever had to prove your worth to someone who should have believed in you? I will be reading and responding. And remember, a lone wolf might lose his mate, but he never loses his teeth. See you in the next story.